Welcome to the Art of Franchise Marketing. Each episode takes a deep dive into the franchise space and explores how the biggest and best brands handle national branding, franchise development, employee recruitment, and localized marketing on a daily basis. This podcast is brought to you by NetSertive, a localized digital marketing partner for franchise networks. NetSertive talks shop with franchise executives to discuss what's working, what's not, and answers the question, what else can you be doing to excel at the art of franchise marketing?
Hello, and welcome to the Art of Franchise Marketing podcast. I'm your host, Erin Martin, and this episode's brought to you by NetSertive. Today, our guest is Pete Baldine, the Chief Growth Officer of North America for Moran Family of Brands, a family of automotive franchise brands. Pete, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Erin. Appreciate you having me.
And to kick it off, can you just give our listeners a little bit of background on you and the company and all of the history that you've had so far?
That could take a while. Yeah. So, my background is I've been in automotive and franchising for a long time. Started out in the early years with Jiffy Lube International when the company was first formed, and went through the rapid 10-year growth span that we had, going from one store to 1,100 in 10 years before it was sold to Pennzoil. And that was like drinking from a fire hose. I was very young at the time. And so it was a great experience. Still keep in contact with a lot of folks from the old Jiffy Lube days. And then I moved on and was in the automotive glass business for quite a while with Safelite Auto Glass, who everybody knows. And in 1999, I joined Moran Family of Brands, an automotive franchise with multiple brands: Mr. Transmission, Milex Complete Auto Care, Altamir Automotive Accessories, a new brand that we have that we launched 3 years ago, Turbo Tint, and also multi-state transmission. So long history there with Moran, companies that were acquired. And we had very interesting in that companies were acquired. So it was a melding of a lot of different cultures, which was quite a task. Okay. And we went through that in the early years and blending those companies together, creating a new culture, going through a lot of best practices to really shape the company. And then most recently, after several years of that and creating what we created there with all those changes, in last December, we acquired Mr. Transmission of Canada, which was a competitor, a friendly competitor that we had up in Canada that we had a relationship with, and two separate companies. Even our Mr. Transmission in the U.S. was MR Transmission, and theirs is MISTER. So we acquired them in December, and we've been going through, again, best practices and integration, and we've gotten pretty good at that.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, after so many acquisitions, what does your playbook look like in terms of what you focus on first and then 60, 90 year and onward for post-acquisition?
Yeah, the first thing that we focus on is building strong relationships with the franchisees. They're our partners, and you can't get anything done without building those relationships first. Building the credibility and laying out a clear game plan so that they understand why the changes that you're making are going to benefit them, why it's good for growth of the company. So that's number one, is creating those relationships and continuing to build on that culture.
And when you start those conversations, is it truly just meeting with them and listening first and then introducing some future plans, or what does it actually look like in terms of?
Yeah, we're actually going through a series of regional meetings right now. That we just did one in Atlanta back a month ago. We've got one here in Chicago in August, and then we've got one in Dallas in November. But so much of it, yes, it's always listening first. You have to listen. You have to see what their real world is and what issues they're experiencing, what opportunities they have in front of them, and work through those together. And then we present, obviously, after listening, we'll digest that information and present plans with how we intend to move forward.
And I like the regional meeting idea, which I'm curious how big that group ends up being then.
Yeah, so the one we did in Atlanta was about 50 people,
Okay.
and we anticipate that Chicago and Dallas will be about the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's a great approach when you've got so many that you can't obviously one-on-one meeting everybody.
It gives you a nice opportunity to have a little smaller group, spend a little more one-on-one time, small group time together with the folks, and really get some traction versus a big convention.
Yeah. Yep. So after you start those conversations, what else does the playbook look like that you guys are working on at the home office side?
Yeah, recently here with the Canadian acquisition, the companies were aligned pretty well in terms of how we did things, and it's sorting through the fundamental functions that we have to focus on in order to move everything forward. And so we're passing the ball a lot, handing things off. We restructured the company to focus on the three key pillars that we feel are the key focus for us, and one pillar is franchisee support, right? Which deals with all the support functions for the franchisees, operations, training, marketing, and all of those support functions. And it didn't make sense to continue to duplicate what we were doing, where Canada was supporting their franchisees and we were supporting ours in the U.S. We needed to create a unified team and do it together and forget about the border. And so we're hot and heavy into that right now. We've done that. And then the second pillar is the growth and development pillar, where we focus on bringing in new franchisees, handling resales for franchisees that are retiring or exiting. And that involves site selection and the banking relationships and broker relationships as well, because a lot of our leads come from the broker community. So that's the second pillar. And then the third pillar is admin and finance. And that's where Barb Moran, who's the CEO and owner of the company, has that pillar and focuses on that piece.
Yeah. And so that first pillar, I'm curious too, when you talk about the shared services, is it all at the Moran Family of Brands level, or do you have individual also support or team members at the brand level that will then dive deeper and help with that activation?
Yeah, good question. For the most part, it's all at the Moran Family of Brands level. The systems that we develop or have developed to support our franchisees can be applied regardless of the brand, right? It's how you approach those franchisees and what services you're providing for them. And it doesn't matter that much what the brand is. The one difference we do have is our Turbo Tint brand, which is our newer emerging brand, is a little bit different. We have a couple people dedicated to that brand. But our repair brands, and that's why we call them repair brands, is because everything is pretty similar. Most of what we do, what we've done in the US and we will be doing in Canada as well, are co-branded locations that merge our Milex Complete Auto Care and Mr. Transmission brands together under the same roof. And the beauty of that strategy when we developed that was that we had two standalone brands. One was general automotive repair, one was transmission repair, and we were able to co-brand those, put them together under the same roof with the same piece of real estate. So the beauty of that was that the fixed overhead was the same, right? But now we had two revenue streams and a broader customer base. So the end result of that was our average sales per store went way up, the expenses stayed the same, and the profitability was correspondingly increased along with the revenue increases.
Yeah. And for those co-branded units, did you start with a corporate location? Did you sell the concept to a franchisee and test it out, see how it went to sell more? What was your approach on starting that strategy and idea?
Yeah, we did that several years ago, and we actually did it with our franchisees. We did not test it in a company-owned store. At the time, we didn't have a company-owned store. We do now, but we did not at the time we were doing that. So we have a franchise advisory board. It's called the franchise FAB, the Franchise Advisory Board. And those franchisees are terrific. They've always been super cooperative with us. We communicate everything with them. We meet with them quarterly. And some of those franchisees, when we presented the concept to them of the co-branding, volunteered to beta test it, which they do often. Whenever there's a new initiative, they typically volunteer to beta test, whether it was co-branding or a new software program or a new marketing program. Those guys jump in because they're engaged and they're concerned about the growth of the company, and they want to see it. They want to see it move forward.
Yeah.
So they give us a lot of assistance that's very valuable in the relationship.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting. The advisory boards are so valuable to have. It's interesting sometimes to hear how brands structure them in terms of input, feedback, decision making, or not. Are they there to guide or actual decision makers? So I'm curious what's worked for you, and when did you form your advisory board? Seems like maybe a while ago, or
Well, we formed ours a long time ago.
yeah.
When I first joined the company, things weren't so good in the relationships at the time for a variety of reasons back 25 years ago. And there was a group of franchisees who had formed a franchise association, and it was their own association. They did not meet with the franchisor. And at the time, as we came in and started building those relationships, we were able to convince them to disband that independent association that they had created and to form an advisory board with us. And so it's taken a lot of years to make that really successful and functional, but it's really worked for us. It's been fantastic. They've been great partners with us. They don't, in terms of decision making, we share pretty much everything with them: financial information, strategy, competitive information, everything. And so they advise us and we listen, and then we make decisions based on the feedback that we've gotten from them. They're not per se making the decision, but they're crucial in the decision making because of their feedback.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I see that approach really work the best, in my opinion, of all the franchise advisory boards that I've seen. So that's awesome to hear.
I see a lot of franchisors that handle those different ways, and some of them don't share nearly as much information with their advisory boards as we do. And that's whatever works for you, right?
Yep. Yeah. Wherever you are on the path.
Yeah.
Yes. And then I'm also curious.
Ours took 20 years, if you will, to develop to where it is today.
Yeah. Yep. And I'm also curious, with all of the acquisitions, one thing I often hear from platform and portfolio companies that are acquiring new brands is just the back end mess that becomes the systems when you're acquiring existing brands and the CRM they're using, the business operating tools. So I'm curious for you guys how you tackle that. Do you keep brands on their same systems? Do you try to integrate into one central tech stack that you guys have? Like, how do you approach that piece of the integration?
The question you asked has two completely different answers, okay? Because the acquisitions that we did years ago in the 90s, when most of those acquisitions were done as the company was being built, those were messy. Okay, everything was different. They were messy. People would fight the change, and it took years to get that all in sync. This most recent acquisition with Mr. Transmission of Canada has been very smooth. Again, strong relationships, existing relationships that we already had with them prior to the acquisition. And we used to share a lot of information anyway between us. Two different countries, so it didn't matter if we were sharing, we were just helping each other, with feedback and information. And so that played a role in how smoothly this acquisition has gone. And basically we are looking at everything that we do. Fortunately, a lot of things are very similar that we do, but we're basically looking at everything in our policies and procedures, software, all that, and blending things together to where the goal is that we want the new merged company to be stronger than the two individual companies were on their own. So we're having a lot of meetings, a lot of cooperation in terms of evaluating, and there's more people on the team. There's more talent on the team now with the integrations. It's really worked well in terms of evaluating different platforms and things like that. For example, there was one AI marketing platform that they had started to test in Canada in about 10 different locations. And as soon as we saw it and saw what it did, we were like, we want to put that in the U.S. stores now.
Yeah. And what was that platform allowing you guys to do? Was it?
So with our business model, how we handle the phones at the store level and how we handle keep in mind that in the automotive repair business, okay, it's a needs-based business, right? So nobody wants to come to you. They're coming to you because they have a need, because they have to get something fixed. They have a problem. So we're problem solving for them. And that's not always the most easy transaction on the telephone because they're skeptical. They're asking a lot of questions. So how we handle objections over the telephone and get the customer to trust us enough to bring their car to the shop so that we can take a look at it and diagnose it properly. All that's critical. And the one platform that I'm speaking of that they were already testing was an AI platform that learns your system and then monitors the phone calls, okay, and actually evaluates the phone calls based on how the customer service rep has handled the call, what their tone was, all of that, and it kicks back a report back to us, letting us know. The beauty of that was we used to get on the phone and we used to listen to phone calls. Okay.
Yeah.
Franchise business coaches would spend hours and hours listening to phone calls to see if they were performing at a high level at the stores. And that is so time consuming.
Yeah.
You get information, but it's the value between the time invested and what you accomplish is off balance a bit.
Yeah.
And this AI platform does that for you, sends you a report. So now the franchise owner can see this report and see how their customer service rep is performing, right? And if the customer does not agree to bring their vehicle in, what we call an FTA, a failure to authorize, the franchise owner gets a text message immediately with the customer's information and letting them know that it was an FTA. And then the owner can call the customer back. He can look at the report real quick, call the customer back and see if he can change the course of that transaction.
That's good.
And so it's really, and they've got a great dashboard where you can see all the performance characteristics, all the metrics. It was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
When we
Yeah.
saw
I love
when
that
we saw what it
example.
was when we saw what it was doing in the test stores in Canada.
Yeah.
Basically, let's plug that in. Let's go.
Yeah. There's a concept in the B2B marketing world as well of moving towards what's called signals. In the consumer world, it's just context. What is the context of this person on the digital path to purchase? And so with you guys having that failure to book the appointment, it's basically surfacing a very important signal that you guys are then able to jump on.
Yeah.
Not to
Yeah.
mention all the valuable insights that are given to the business coaches and to be able to better convert people while on the phone. So that's the other piece I think that you're talking about with AI that I do love for really practical applications. It's like, what are those key actions that we would want to take based off of what someone does? And how do we use AI to better extract what those behaviors are so we can pounce at the right time?
And then on top of that, Erin, everything you said, plus how does it apply to the generation that you're speaking to on the phone right now? Because each of those generations has some different triggers that impact their decision making.
Yes. I'm curious, what are your observations on those differences in the generations?
Yeah. So, and I just was at a conference in Salt Lake City last week, and they had a guest speaker who talked about all that, and that's kind of why it was top of mind for me. And it was a very interesting keynote that this lady gave about the different generations and what each of their characteristics were. And the younger generations, one of the key things is a lot of our business historically is building trust over the telephone, and they don't want to talk on the telephone.
Yep.
They want to text, and they want to go to your website and look at reviews and, and things like that. Whereas the boomers like myself, they want to get on the phone and ask questions and talk. So two completely different worlds in a sense.
Yeah. I would even go so far to say even the younger generations, even seeing bypassing websites and just going to social accounts to be able to see. There's an awesome marketer, Lindsay Simpson, who she was sharing that her daughter was talking about some brand and she mentioned their website and her daughter was like, "Heck, you went to their website? Why would you go to their website?" Basically, just sites are old and dead. What are you doing going to a website? And that's, oh my gosh, mind blown. Like that's the generation, just like voice searches, voice memos, no websites, a whole nother ball.
Listen, last week, a funny story here. Last week, I had left the office. I got a phone call from my 11-year-old granddaughter who said, "Papa, I'm going to the horse show tomorrow, and my Owala water bottle didn't come in yet, and they sell them at Target. Can you stop at a Target and get me one so I have it for the horse show tomorrow?" And I said, "Honey, I just left the office. I'm not sure." And she said, "Hold on a second." And I hear her in the background go, "Alexa, is there a Target in Orland Park?" She knows my office is in Orland Park, right? And then she comes back on the phone and she says, "There's a Target 1.4 miles away from where you are right now." She said, "Will you go?" I said, "Sure, I'll go." But I mean, 11.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh man, I had so many other questions too. One thing, jumping back to previous in our conversation too, you had mentioned sharing information with, you're calling them a friendly competitor in Canada, which I think that reminds me there's such an untapped opportunity there. What an amazing venue to receive intel and information and bounce ideas off of someone with a brand who's very similar to you, but again, not a true competitor, to be able to get a leg up in the market and best practices. And I think that is actually an underutilized opportunity for most brands. I think oftentimes we're like, "Oh no, we got to guard our stuff. I'm never going to talk to someone else about what we're doing. We share what we're doing." But there are so many pockets of that as an opportunity that people don't jump on.
So interestingly enough, Mr. Transmission of Canada was run by a guy named Tony Kaczynski. Okay. He was the CEO there and is our president now. Okay. For the combined company. About 3 years ago, Tony contacted me and asked me to do a joint presentation with him at the ACTRA convention on resales, because we've done a lot of resales with franchisees retiring and stuff. And so Tony and I worked together on this presentation, and we presented together at this industry meeting. And after that, for the next couple of years, we had monthly Zoom meetings together where we just shared ideas. Again, we weren't a threat to each other. We just shared ideas. How's your CRM working? Which one are you using? What are you doing with this? What are you doing with that? How are you handling resales? How are you handling new sales? All those kind of conversations. And we just did that every month.
Yeah.
And it was funny because when we acquired them last December, the relationship already existed. We already knew a lot about each other, and we were able to just hit the ground running.
Yeah, that's so good. Because I think there's so many people that get value from the CMO peer groups, industry roundtables, those type of things. But to take it one level deeper and find someone who's just exactly in your shoes in a non-competitive way is just such rich, amazing insights.
Yeah, it was really valuable. And during those meetings, Tony would bring in some of his team members from time to time. So I knew some of the other team members as well. So it's just been a real blessing, really.
Yeah. And I know you guys have a ton of work on your plate as you integrate Turbo Tint, but what other initiatives do you guys have for the rest of the year going on?
The main thing is getting everybody, so where we blended the team and created this unified team, It's now getting everybody up to speed because people are in different roles, maybe a similar role to what they were in the US or Canada, but now they've got to meet those franchisees. They've got to visit those stores. They've got to do all the things associated with moving everything forward. So that's the biggest initiative, is spending the next several months smoothing things out and getting everybody up to speed with all the new information and new relationships that they have, both for what were our people in the US and what were their people in Canada, which are all now the same team. But we had, for example, our technical department is now the tech department for the whole system, for all of North America. Our operations department is now operations for the entire system. Same thing with marketing, same thing with the growth and development. So a lot of new information, a lot of coordination, a lot of transitioning.
And what do those touch points look like for you guys? You talked about the 3 pillars, so I'm thinking specifically with the franchisee support piece. What are those touch points, whether it's training, meetings, virtual meetings, like what does that rollout look like?
So one of the things we did early on was we had a training department that was much more developed, if you will. So that was an easy decision to roll out what we had developed here in the US for training to the Canadian franchisees. Okay. And we have an online university. They didn't have an online university, right? So one of the first things we did was, with our CRM that we use, we entered all the Canadian franchisees into the CRM so that they had access to everything that the US franchisees had. And then we opened up the online university for them to have access to all the training material for them and their teams. And that's an example of kind of a big initiative that was a no-brainer early on, because it was just the ability to share a whole bunch of information that didn't exist up there.
Yeah.
Similar thing with our tech department. They had a tech department. They ran kind of different levels. Their tech department was more hands-on training in the store. Ours was more higher level informational tech support. And that was a neat thing because we were able to blend those together and do both, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So it wasn't picking one or the other. It was, we like both components, and let's just keep going, but reach out to now across the entire system instead of the border restrictions.
Yeah. Yeah. And what is the components that you guys handle at the home office level versus what you enable franchisees to do on the marketing front?
So we a couple of things that we do, and our approach has always been, what are the things that the franchisees struggle with in terms of either their knowledge of how to handle them or the time commitment that it takes that they struggle with, right? And so we have assessed the day-to-day operations of the franchisees from a marketing standpoint, and our marketing team has taken on certain functions, certain roles that previously, even though we would talk to the franchisees about the importance of those things, they just couldn't implement as well as what was needed.
Yeah.
Time, what their typical life is like during the day. So responding to reviews was one of them that was a challenge. Okay. So our marketing team does that for them. They'll communicate with them. If there's a challenging review, they'll contact the franchisee and say, let's talk about this one. But they respond virtually to every review within 24 hours. Okay.
Which that's impressive.
Handling social media. The franchisees know that being out there on social media is important. Okay. The challenge is, where do they get the content from? Right. And how do they put it into their daily routine to get it to actually implement, right? So that one being a recognized challenge, our marketing team handles that. We've got a program, we develop the content, and we push out 3-4 times a week for every store their social media posts. The franchisee can, if the franchisee wants to post, they certainly can, but we develop content for them to get those social media posts out there on a multiple times a week.
Yeah.
There's a couple examples of how of things that we do for them and why we do them, right? It's because there are certain things that the franchisees on a daily basis do really well, right? And if they're doing that fits into their daily routine, let them run with it, right? And then these other things that are challenging for them to get done are the things that we'll pick up and do for them. So that way
Yeah.
you kind of balance out all the needs.
Yeah. That kind of reminds me of the value of capacity planning and the customer experience of that actual franchisee and their day to day. There's also a framework that I've used in the past called RACI that stands for responsibility, accountability. I think it's consulted or informed. And it's basically just this matrix of who owns what and what are different people's roles when you're on a team so that you make sure everything gets done and there's a clear owner. And so it reminds me for a franchise brand, it's very similar that you've got the home office with swim lanes, you've got your franchisee with ownership in swim lanes. But if you actually, you've got this idea in your head of what makes sense of a joint playbook of who's doing what. But then if you took a step back and you audit a franchisee's actual day and prioritize all the things that they are responsible for on their list, would these marketing items down here really bubble up into their day? No, they need to be answering the phone correctly. They need to be serving customers. There's all these other high value touch points where then it becomes a no-brainer of, okay, we need to handle this piece on their behalf like you guys are doing.
Yeah.
So I think there's a very good, it's almost like the secret shopper or that journey audit for a franchisee in their shoes and their daily responsibilities to think about where should their priorities be and how do you support.
Yeah, if the day-to-day responsibilities don't allow them to get to certain things, quit talking to them about how they need to do it
Yeah.
and come up with a solution that gets it done for them.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not all that different than a delegation matrix. If you look at a delegation matrix, right,
Yes.
and you say, okay, if I'm good at this and I like doing it, then I probably should keep it. It's not something I should delegate. But if I'm lousy at it and I don't like doing it, I need to find somebody to give that one to because I'm not going to get it done or I'm not going to get it done well.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And I know we're coming up on time, but I do want to ask about a little bit about lessons learned or big takeaways from the Jiffy Lube days, because going from 11 to 1100 is an
Correction,
amazing.
Erin, that was going from 1 to 1100.
1 to 1100. Okay, so that is quite a journey. So I'm curious now that you have some perspective and you look back, what are some of the biggest lessons or takeaways from that time?
Oh my goodness. At that time it was like drinking from a fire hose. And I was fresh out of college. I was 23, 24 years old and you had all this stuff going on. It was the rapid growth in some ways was great. The fact that we went from 1 to 1100 in 10 years was really amazing. However, there's a lot of mistakes in there between in terms of growing too fast, allowing franchisees to open up stores faster than they should. They weren't ready to open the second, third, the 20th. And because we were so focused on the growth, one of the mistakes was not slowing it down, not stepping on the brake a little bit and doing it better instead of just doing it. One of our leaders back in the day used to use this phrase, ready, fire, aim. And that seemed like how we operated for a long time.
Yeah.
Now, you can look at all that, but one of the lessons learned is you can look at all that and you can pick that apart and you can focus on the things that could have done better or the mistakes that were made. But when you look at the overall picture and what was accomplished during those 10 years, it's hard to challenge any of it, to be honest with you. Because
Yeah.
it was a tremendous accomplishment. It was a historical accomplishment in franchising. And it was great to be part of it. Fortunately for me, I feel like I got force-fed about 25 years of experience in 10 years.
Yeah.
So I don't have any complaints.
Outside of the growth, is there anything that comes to mind as one of the best lessons you've learned, either from
Well,
failure or the
yeah,
success?
yeah. I think that when you ask that question, I think that one of the best answers to that question is the importance of building a strong culture and the importance of selecting franchisees, awarding franchises, not selling franchises, but awarding franchises to people that are a good fit with that culture that you've developed. I think in franchising, that's one of the most important things. Growth is nice. Growth is great, and you want to grow, but you need to grow the right way. And you have to find that balance too between your growth and your infrastructure to support that growth. Because if they're out of balance and you're growing faster than your infrastructure can support it, it's going to eventually turn into negative validation, and it's going with your franchisees, and it's going to then hinder that growth at some point in time. So keeping those franchisees happy and supporting those franchisees and having the right balance between infrastructure and growth is critical, but culture is everything.
Yep, that's so good. Pete, thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything else that you wish we would have touched on that I didn't ask you about today?
No, I think that was great, Erin. I enjoyed it. A lot of great questions. I enjoyed the conversation. Hopefully, it's is helpful for you and for anybody listening. And it's just when you were talking about our collaboration with Mr. Transmission in Canada, I would add that was pretty cool. Okay, that's indicative of the franchise community. I've been in franchising so long, and I absolutely love it, and I love the community, and I love the collaboration, and the fact that in our franchising community, there's not a lot of secrets. People are very open to share and to help one another, regardless of the business model.
Yeah.
And that's what makes franchising so much fun. You go to these conferences and when people and you share ideas, and it's really a great experience.
Yeah. And to your point of kind of growing responsibly as a brand as well, it reminds me that is when you're trying to level up, there are so many other people out there who are at your unit level that have doubled and been through what you're about to go through, that you can pick their brain on what they wish they would have known, that you can start to think about. So there's so many people to reach out to and network with to be able to get that inspiration to figure out how do I take this to the next level and start to forecast and plan for the growth that we.
Yeah, absolutely. Matter of fact, today's Wednesday. Later on today, there's a industry roundtable group that I meet with every week, and there's about 20 of us, all C-level executives, and all different spaces in the franchise community, and we share everything.
Yeah.
It's something that I look forward to every week because with some of these people, we've been meeting as a group for about 5 years. It started during COVID. And
Oh, yeah. So
we
you've got straight up virtual buddies now weekly.
and it's funny, every once in a while you get to a conference and one of these people that you're physically meeting them for the first time and you've known them for 5 years.
Yeah. That's so good.
Yeah.
Pete, thank you so much for joining. If people wanted to learn more about the Moran Family of Brands, where can they go?
Yeah. MoranBrands.com is our website, and plenty of information on there. Yeah.
Sounds good. Well,
AI, you can always Google us or plug us into AI and see what AI says about us. I've done it. It's pretty good.
Thanks again for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Erin. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to The Art of Franchise Marketing. This show is brought to you by NetSerted. We help franchise brands and multi-location businesses run localized digital marketing at scale. To learn more, visit netsertive.com. Thanks for listening to The Art of Franchise Marketing. This show is brought to you by NetSerted. We help franchise brands and multi-location businesses run localized digital marketing at scale. To learn more, visit netsertive.com.